The MP for Bassetlaw is Brendan Clarke-Smith, delighted to say, is taking the trouble to come here to the studio to talk to us today. Brendan, thanks so much for coming in, appreciate it.
Thank you, Colin.
On my point there, that it looks like a coincidence, 12 billion for foreign aid, 12 billion is the tax hole, the tax that will be generated by this 1.25% increase in national insurance. I have a feeling that in your constituency, we can probably call it a red wall constituency, can't we? Many of your constituents will say, why are we spending all this money on foreign aid when we're increasing taxes?
Absolutely, and as you said, we're still one of the most generous countries in the world with that, even with the 0.7 to 0.5 cut. And there are people whose doors I would knock on would just put it straight down to zero, quite frankly.
Would they?
But at the same time, I think if you ask those same people, do you think it's right that we help people where we can? You look at what we've done with AstraZeneca and the vaccines, none of that is counted as well. And people are all for that and doing the right thing in the world. But I think what people do want to see is their taxes spent effectively and in the right places. And when you're adding things onto people's cost of living, you need to be able to justify that. Now, of course, that national insurance increase, our manifesto stated that we weren't going to do that. Obviously, COVID has come along since then, and we've had to make some very difficult decisions. But people can't see a doctor. We need to clear the NHS backlog, and we do need to sort out social care. So it's unfortunately a tough decision that's had to be made.
If you were making it, what would you do?
It's a difficult one. I've voted it through very reluctantly. I prefer the smaller state, low taxes. That's generally where I come from. I do appreciate we've got exceptional circumstances, but I think sometimes with lower taxes you can get a higher tax actual income. And if you grow the economy, and I'd like to see us try that approach, really. But in the short term, yes, we need to get money in quickly, and I get that, and I fully understand that. But of course, we have energy bills as well that's coming up as well, so maybe there's some even more tough decisions that need making.
That's a given, isn't it? You've got inflation, probably 6% this coming year, a cost of living crisis. It's the cliche, but we're all using it. Angela Rayner, first question yesterday in the first PMQs of the new year. It wasn't about COVID. It was about the cost of living crisis. How much is it coming up on your doorstep?
Well, the cost of living for families is always going to be an issue, I think, wherever you are in the country, whether that's in the Red Wall or whether that's in the South or so on, and whether it's your energy bills, whether it's your mortgage and interest rates. Of course, the last thing we want is to see interest rates sky high like they were in the early 90s and people losing their homes. So that is something that we really need to focus on. And I know they spoke about VAT, and that of course, is only 5% of the energy bills. You know, a pound or two a week is not really going to make a huge difference with that. 25% of it is in green levies, and I think people want to see that spent properly as well.
Yeah, you see, it would be fine, wouldn't it? I mean, a pound or two a week, most people can cope with that. When you start talking about £1,200 a year extra, which is what we're talking about, on average, people look at their pocketbooks, or they look at their apps now, and they start to scratch their heads. It's a lot of money.
Absolutely, and if we're going to scrap VAT or do other things, what you don't want is those savings not being passed on to the consumers as well. So that's something that we've got to really watch out for. So Prime Minister suggested things like the Warm Homes discount scheme is maybe expanded, maybe increased. There are things such as loans that we can give out to some of these energy companies so they can perhaps buy longer term so the wholesale volatility doesn't affect them. But a lot of it really comes down to generating our own energy, having that capacity here really, and having better energy security. But I think the last 20, 30, however many years, we haven't seen those tough decisions that have been made, and now we're seeing the consequences of it.
Brendan, as a Conservative backbencher, you remind me, I'm sure, of what your constituency margin is and how safe your seat is. But as a backbencher, I wonder if you worry that the fact that the party that you subscribe to, you're a low-tax Tory, but the party isn't seen by a lot of people anymore as a low-tax Tory. If you read James Kirkup in The Times this morning in his column, he was saying there is now a place, a vacancy, to the right of your party in British politics. It may be fronted by a party, who knows, even in the fullness of time, led by one of my colleagues here at GB News, who shall remain nameless. And that is an opportunity that creates a threat for you.
Yeah, I think I always say you can't spend your way to prosperity, and levelling up is really important. There's some infrastructure that we do need throughout the country, but really we want to set private industry free, really, and generate that extra wealth. And you know, that's certainly where I come from as a Conservative. It's that low tax base. It's about the state getting out the way, not over-regulating everything and giving people the freedom, making Britain an attractive place to invest, really, so we can leave families to keep more of the money in their own pockets, make their own decisions about how they spend that. And I always say families know how to spend their money far better than any government ever will.
Yeah, and a lot of people will definitely agree with that sentiment. Brendan Clarke-Smith, appreciate you coming in. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Well, now, if you have